Interesting. BJ from Board Game Gumbo here on Gumbo Live. I've got my guest Curt Covert from Smirk and Dagger, or Smirk and Laughter in this case. The games that we're talking about, that he's coming out with his new line. And the next game I want to talk about, and I think the last one that you're planning, at least as far as 2018, a beautiful game. That at least the cover looks fantastic. I don't know who did the art for it, but wow, Koi, what a beautiful cover.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So this art was done by Christy Freeman, who is a Chicago illustrator, and the design of the game itself is Bill Lasek. This is a light strategy game. It's great for as an entree into strategy games in general. I think the other role that these kind of filler games can have is that our hobby is growing and expanding. Yes. And we are getting, in game stores and, game nights all the time, people who wouldn't necessarily call themselves gamers, but who have started to discover some really cool games that are not just Monopoly. So a lot of these kind of, tapas games are also great as entrees to bring new people into the hobby, and this is a great one for that. It certainly will satisfy true gamers as well, but nothing in the strategy is so overwhelming that you can't sit down and learn it very quickly. You are a koi fish. You are looking for an excellent meal of dragonflies and frogs. True. And you have these program movement cards. So it might say, turn right, move forward, option, turn left. And you start playing them. You don't program them down like Robo Rally, but you play them out of your hand. And you're trying to navigate towards dragonflies to gobble them up. But you end up swimming kind of like a fish back and forth on the board because of all the crazy turns. And then you add these natural beauty cards. They're part of your hand. And as you beautify the pond by adding cherry blossoms and decorative stone and lily pads, you also cause havoc for all your opponents. So rocks will block their movement. Placing a frog on the board, well, it could make a delicious 1-point meal, or you could drop it next to the dragonflies on the other side of the pond where those guys are swimming, because frogs love dragonflies and it's just going to gobble them up. So there's lots of interesting, which route am I going to go right now in this just beautifully imagined light strategy game? Yeah.
Chris Strain is checking in, and Chris says, "Hey, great looking art, and I love the theme." And Chris knows art. He's the designer and artist behind Asking for Troubles. I don't know if you've ever played Asking for Troubles.
Yeah, that's great.
And a bunch of other games that he's been working on. So, yeah, I totally agree. When I saw this cover, the cover alone, I mean, it just knocked my socks off there. And then I saw a picture. I grabbed the little screen grab so people can see, and hopefully you can see that. It's a little shot of you demoing it with Z. And so it's got a little bit of an abstractness. I'm assuming it's all perfect information. People can see what you have, or do you have some hidden information in your hand?
Well, you have your hand is completely hidden, but the topography of the board is completely known. It is, as you can see, a hex kind of a map. And that gets populated with lily pads and rocks and other kind of things. So you're trying to navigate around the pond. Do I have anything here? I don't even have anything great to show you right here. These are even some cards that I'm just cooking up. But you can see again the artwork just continues to be really just stunning stuff.
I just love that stuff. That is some beautiful artwork. Yeah. Beautiful, almost watercolors.
They are, in fact. Christy, the way she works is she takes a large canvas and she uses an opaque white, or it might even be glow-in-the-dark paint, to actually create all the little scales and details and swirls. And then she watercolors on the canvas, sometimes painting with coffee, sometimes with inks, and it just comes out amazing.
Wow. Yeah. Hey, a little comment from Steve. Steve says, "Must get Before There Were Stars. Love the thought this could be a campfire storyteller, a way to be a new bard or shaman. The dice could really draw people out who might struggle storytelling without a net. Looks gorgeous too." And yeah, and that's the first thought I had with Before There Were Stars. sometimes we bring out these type of games where like a bad medicine or something like that, where you've got to think on your feet, and some people aren't into that. The Before There Were Stars seems to kind of fix that. So good comment there from Steve.
Yeah. It's interesting. There are still times where you may not have gotten the constellation card that you expected, and you might still have to think on your feet. But the wonderful thing about telling stories that are mythological in nature is that they're part of the DNA of humanity.
Sure.
We all have grown up with mythology around the world, and sometimes we've got even a story that tries to explain the same phenomenon. So we all know that there's this the sun comes up and the moon sets, and it's a cycle. Well, people have been trying to explain why that might be for millions, thousands of years anyway. So and every culture has a different story about it. So this allows you, there's actually a game mode in the game where you can tell the story of the same thing, tell the legend of a thing, and do comparative kind of stories to see what people came up with from their point of view, from their culture. And that's kind of cool too.
A couple of quick questions on Koi, though. So you talked about the designer, Bill Lasek. Is this his first design?
This is his first published design, yes. Okay. Yeah.
And what's the play count? I'm assuming 2 to 4. It looks like maybe.
Yes. Actually, I take that back. It's actually a 1 to 4. He does have a solo version of this game.
Steve, did you hear that? Steve plays a lot of solo games, so I know he's going to be excited about that.
Yeah.
So 1 to 4, and it takes about what are we talking?
Oh, it's like a nice 40-minute game. And the solo game is kind of cool because it's not like try to beat the score kind of a thing. Try to best your own score. Yeah. This is one where there's an AI player.
Okay.
So you're actually trying to beat the AI player, and you can scale up the difficulty of how hard that challenge is going to be.
Yeah, I like those. I don't always like it where it's just beat this certain score. I like it when there's some kind of mechanism that you have to defeat.
Yeah.
I played Pigment tonight. I just got it in. And it's a very tiny little 20-minute worker placement game, and I love worker placement games. But the guy designed a one-player where basically it's automatic. You just follow a set of rules that the other player is always going to do X, Y, and Z, and then you got to see if you can outscore him before he outscores you. So if you guys have a one-player element in there, that's going to be attractive to a lot of people. Solo gaming just is exploding.
Yes, you're absolutely right. In fact, Bill almost had to talk me into it because I'm not that guy. I really thrive on the interaction of people. Sure. But he said, you got to try it. And solo games are a big thing right now. So don't discount it out of hand. And he was right.
Yeah, well, there's some nights, my wife is a school teacher, and there's some nights where she's just grading papers. And, I want to play a game. I'll just sit next to her while she's grading papers, and I'm playing a Pigment or a Scythe or Imperial Settlers, and I'm just going through the solo part. And it's fun. And then when she finishes, we'll throw on a game. But at least we're sitting there together at the table, and we're talking, we're visiting while I'm playing a little solo game. And Steve, like I said, he loves his solos. He's already thinking of how he can turn Before There Were Stars. Now that's ridiculous, Steve. You can't turn a storytelling game into a solo game. But if anybody could, look at Kurt's brain. He's already starting to think of it.
Well, so you can. That you can tell yourself the story. I mean, it can still be about story creation. It's not about story sharing necessarily, but story creation certainly. And we're going to do things on our Facebook page where we're going to start putting up 2 cards and tell the story of the beginning. Just type it in. So can you? Sure, but. Yeah,
I'm just going to give myself 4 points every time I tell a story, though. I'm just
because you're awesome.
Right. My stories are fantastic. Yeah, that's right. BJ from Board Game Gumbo here, Gumbo Live. Enjoying my chat here with Curt Covert, who's got this fantastic line. This really appeals to me. Steve and I belong to a group called the Gateway and Filler Games group on Facebook. A wonderful set of people. It's a small Facebook group of about 500 or 600 people, and they all love games that are an hour or less. Can be taught to people. All of us are either brand new to gaming or are evangelizers like me and Steve, where we're bringing in people that are brand new. And you got to have that stable of games. And all of these from Smirk and Laughter, they all seem like the kind of game you can bring to a library game night, or to your group of 3 or 4 couples that just want to play games.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily interested in a brain melting, anachrony type of a game. Something you can teach easy and just have good memories with.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I've been shooting for this line in particular.